The Great Lakes of North America have a $7 billion fishing industry and a $16 billion recreational boating industry. This here is the choke point, the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. The fish would have to come through here, which is why this water is electrified.
The water you are looking at right now is hiding a secret that could cost the United States $7 billion. On the surface, the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal looks like just another dirty waterway. But underneath, there is an invisible electric fence pumping 2,000 volts of electricity into the current. It was built to stop a monster from entering the Great Lakes. For 20 years, we thought it was working. But sensors just picked up a heartbeat on the wrong side of the barrier. And the thing they detected is not swimming alone. The glitch that wasn't a glitch. The system only works if the power stays on, and it only works if the fish play by the rules. Recently, deep water sonar picked up an anomaly that defies the rules. A school of fish was seen utilizing the wake of a passing barge to surf right over the electric current without feeling a thing. It is called the Trojan Horse effect, and it just let the enemy inside the gates. The footage is disturbing, but the implications are worse. We are not just dealing with a fish anymore. We are dealing with a super predator that just learned how to beat our best technology. The chaos started with a simple computer glitch. It was a standard Tuesday in October 2025 at the Romeoville Barrier Facility. This place is located roughly 30 miles southwest of Chicago. Think of this facility as the Area 51 of freshwater conservation. It is a highly restricted zone where the water hums with 2.3 volts per inch of direct current. To a fish, swimming into this water feels like touching a live wire. It turns them around instantly. Or at least, that is what the manual says. But on this specific morning, the main control board flashed a warning. There was a power fluctuation during a routine switch between the primary and backup generators. For exactly 17 minutes, the voltage dipped. It was not a total blackout, but the field strength dropped just enough to create a gray zone. In that short window, the underwater acoustic cameras, which look like grainy medical ultrasounds, picked up movement. Now, usually, this is just debris. A tire, a tree branch, maybe something worse drifting from the city upstream. But debris moves with the current. This shadow was fighting against it. Technicians watched in horror as the blob on the screen grew larger. It was not one object. It was a cluster, a school. They were moving fast, utilizing the drop in voltage to push through the gauntlet. By the time the generators kicked back to full power, the signal was gone. They had crossed. This event, which insiders are calling Operation Phantom Cross, triggered a massive panic. The Army Corps of Engineers immediately deployed electro-fishing boats. These are specialized vessels that zap the water to stun fish, so they float to the surface for capture. They were not looking for bass or catfish. They were hunting for the Asian carp. Specifically the bighead and silver carp. These are not your average goldfish. Imagine a fish that grows to the size of a 6th grader, weighs 100 pounds, and eats so much plankton that it starves out every other living thing in the water. If they reach Lake Michigan, the game is over. The crews worked for 6 hours, scanning the murky water north of the barrier. And then they found it. A single 22-pound bighead carp thrashing in the net just 12 miles from the lake. But here is the catch. The sensors had detected a school of fish. The crews only caught one. This was not just a failure of machinery. It was a confirmation of everyone's worst nightmare. The barrier, which has cost taxpayers over $200 million since 2002, had a leak. And the timing could not be worse. New intelligence suggests that the carp have not just been waiting at the door. They have been testing the lock. Biological data shows these fish are becoming more resistant to the electric shocks. They are adapting. The captured carp was rushed to a lab for analysis. They checked its otoliths. These are little ear bones that act like a black box flight recorder for fish. By analyzing the chemical layers in the bone, scientists can tell exactly where the fish has lived, and the results were terrifying. This fish had not just arrived. It had spent months in the Des Plaines River, lurking in the shadows, waiting for an opening. And when the power dipped for those 17 minutes, it took its shot. But the scary part is not the fish they caught. It is the ones they missed. The Great Lakes hold 20% of the world's surface fresh water. It supports a $7 billion fishing industry. It provides drinking water for 40 million people. And right now, the only thing protecting that massive resource is a metal cable at the bottom of a dirty canal that just proved it can fail. The detection of live DNA beyond the barrier proves that the electric curtain has holes. But how did a 100-pound monster get past a voltage field that should have knocked it unconscious? The answer involves a massive cargo ship and a physics loophole that nobody saw coming. But the real danger is not in the water. It is hiding in the ship's wake. The hidden current. So, here is the deal. The electric barrier works on a principle called a graded field. As a fish swims upstream, the electric shock starts as a tickle. If the fish keeps going, the tickle turns into a cramp. If it pushes further, the cramp becomes a seizure, and the fish floats back downstream. It sounds foolproof, but nature always finds a way. What most people do not realize is that the Chicago Canal is not just a sewer, it is a superhighway. Every single day, massive barges carrying coal, sand, and petroleum move through these waters. These ships are huge, often 200 feet long and pushing thousands of tons of cargo. When a barge this size moves through a narrow canal, it displaces a massive amount of water. It creates a return current. Basically, the water alongside the barge rushes backward to fill the hole the ship just made. This is where the Trojan Horse theory comes in. Small fish and even medium-sized carp can get trapped in this return current. They do not even have to swim. The physics of the water drags them along for the ride. But it gets worse. The huge steel hull of the barge interferes with the electric field. Steel conducts electricity. So, as the barge passes over the electrodes at the bottom of the canal, the steel hull essentially soaks up the electricity. It creates a shadow, or a bubble of safety underneath the boat. Inside this bubble, the voltage drops to almost zero. It is the perfect getaway car. By the time the barge clears the barrier, the fish are already on the other side. They are free to swim into Lake Michigan. We are not just guessing this happens. Researchers have proven it. They put tagged fish in a tank and drove a model barge over them. The fish did not scatter. They grouped up under the hull. They used the ship as a shield. This explains why environmental DNA, also known as eDNA, keeps showing up past the barrier. eDNA is basically genetic dandruff, scales, mucus, and waste that fish leave behind. For years, the Army Corps of Engineers said these positive samples were just contamination from bird poop or boat hulls, but the 2025 breach proved the skeptics right. The fish are hitching rides. And let's talk about the vitality of these fish. The silver carp is an athlete. It can jump 10 feet out of the water when startled. If you have ever seen those viral videos of fish smacking people in the face while boating, that is the silver carp. They are sensitive to vibrations. The barrier emits a constant thumping vibration. To a silver carp, that does not feel like a keep-out sign. It feels like a predator. It triggers their flight response. In some tests, when the electricity hits them, instead of turning around, they panic and sprint forward. If they are fast enough, momentum carries them through the shock zone before they pass out. They wake up on the other side with a headache, but they are alive. And they are in the Great Lakes. This is why the government is scrambling to build the Brandon Road Interbasin project. This is the new plan. It is a $1.2 billion fortress located downstream from the current barrier. And it is going to be medieval. Instead of just electricity, they are using sound. Massive underwater speakers will blast 120 decibel noise, essentially the sound of a jet engine underwater. Carp hate noise. The idea is to scream at them until they turn around. But that is not all. They are installing an air bubble curtain. This is a wall of bubbles pumped from the floor of the canal. It messes with the fish's radar. They cannot see through it, and the sound bounces off it. It creates a wall of white noise and confusion. And finally, they are building a flush lock. Right now, when a ship moves through a lock, water from the river mixes with water from the lake. It is an open door. The new lock will pump out all the dirty river water, and replace it with clean water before the ship moves forward. It is like an airlock in a spaceship, but for fish. It sounds amazing, right? But here is the catch. Construction has barely started. It will not be fully operational until 2032. The carp are knocking on the door today. The captured bighead carp from the first chapter was a mature female. Do you know how many eggs a single female can carry? Up to 1 million. It only takes a few successful breaches to start a population. Once they spawn, it is impossible to stop them. The larvae are microscopic. They do not react to electricity. They float with the current. If a barge carries a cloud of larvae through the lock, the invasion begins without us even seeing it. And the scary part is we might already be too late. There are rumors, unconfirmed reports from fishermen in the southern tip of Lake Michigan of strange readings on their fish finders. Massive schools of fish suspended in the middle of the water column behaving exactly like carp. The government denies it. They say the lake is clean. But they also said the barrier was impenetrable. The reality is that we are fighting a biological wildfire with a garden hose. And while we focus on the mechanics of the barrier, the fish are doing something we did not expect. They are changing. The carp we are fighting today are not the same ones that arrived 20 years ago. Breeding a better soldier. Let's take a second to respect the enemy. The Asian carp is not a villain. It is a biological masterpiece. Evolution spent millions of years designing the perfect eating machine, and we dropped it into the most fertile river system in North America. These fish were brought to the United States in the 1970s to clean algae out of catfish ponds in Arkansas. It seemed like a great idea, a natural vacuum cleaner. But then, the Mississippi River flooded, the ponds overflowed, the carp escaped. In the wild, they realized they had no natural predators, no alligators, no massive sharks, nothing that could eat a mature carp. They exploded north. In some parts of the Illinois River, Asian carp make up 95% of the biomass. That means if you pulled 100 pounds of living things out of the water, 95 pounds of it would be carp. They have starved out the native bass, the walleye, and the paddlefish. They strip the water clean of plankton, which is the bottom of the food chain. Without plankton, the baby native fish starve. The ecosystem collapses from the bottom up. But here is the new twist that has scientists sweating. Hybridization. We are seeing silver carp and bighead carp interbreeding. In their native China, these two species usually stay separate. But in the muddy, crowded waters of the Mississippi Basin, they are mixing. The result is a super carp. These hybrids are more aggressive than the bigheads and grow faster than the silvers. They are tougher. They can survive in colder water, and they can tolerate lower oxygen levels. This is crucial because Lake Michigan is cold. For years, some experts argued that even if the carp got into the Great Lakes, they would not survive. They said there was not enough food in the deep, cold, open water. They said the carp would starve. It was a comforting lie. New studies showed that the carp would not head for the deep water. They would hug the shorelines. They would invade the bays, the river mouths, and the wetlands. These are the nurseries of the Great Lakes, the exact places where all the native fish lay their eggs. The carp would turn these nurseries into buffets. And the hybrids? They are specifically adapted to survive the transition. They are the special forces of the invasion. Also, consider the numbers. A native walleye might lay 50,000 eggs. A sturgeon takes 15 years to reach maturity. A bighead carp matures in 3 years and lays 1 million eggs. It is a math problem that the native fish cannot win. If they establish a foothold, the Great Lakes fishing industry evaporates. The sport fishing tournaments? Gone. The commercial perch industry? Gone. And it is not just about fish. It is about real estate. Silver carp jump. Imagine taking your family out for a boat ride on Lake Michigan, and suddenly 20-pound missiles are flying at your head. This happens every day on the Illinois River. People have suffered broken jaws, concussions, and broken ribs. Who is going to buy a lake house or rent a pontoon boat if the water is a war zone? Property values would crash. Tourism would vanish. This is why the recent breach at the barrier is so terrifying. It proves that the containment strategy is failing. We have been trying to hold back a tsunami with a chain link fence. The sensors at the barrier are designed to detect the bioelectric signature of a fish, But as these fish hybridize, their physiology changes slightly. Is it possible that the hybrids have a different signature? Is it possible they are stealthy to our current sensors? The glitch in October 2025 might not have been a glitch at all. It might have been the sensors failing to recognize a new type of enemy. And get this, the carp are smart. We think of fish as dumb animals, but they learn. Fishermen have reported seeing carp avoid nets. They see them avoid areas where electrofishing boats operate. They are learning the map of the battlefield. When the voltage dropped at the barrier, they did not hesitate. They surged. That implies they were waiting. That implies a level of awareness that we are not prepared for. We are dealing with a creature that has conquered every river it has touched. The Danube in Europe, the Mississippi in America. And now they are one swim away from the largest freshwater system on Earth. But there is an even darker theory. Some people believe the carp are already there. If you talk to the old-timers at the marina, they will tell you stories about ghost fish on the scanner. Massive readings deep in the Calumet Harbor. The government relies on eDNA and electrofishing to find them. But the lake is enormous. It is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. But the needle is moving, and the haystack is the size of West Virginia. If a population of 50 or 100 carp is already hiding in the weeds of Lake Michigan, they could be breeding right now. We would not know until the population hits a critical mass. And by then, no barrier in the world can save us. But there is one solution that guarantees safety. It is extreme, it is expensive, and almost nobody wants to do it. The nuclear option. The solution is actually very simple. If you do not want fish to swim from the river to the lake, you break the connection. You fill the canal with dirt. It is called hydrological separation. Basically, we would build a massive physical dam in the Chicago Waterway. We would restore the natural divide that existed for 10,000 years before we dug the canal in 1900. It sounds perfect, right? 100% effectiveness. No electricity needed. No bubbles. Just a big wall of concrete and dirt. But here is the catch. Chicago was built on this canal. It is the city's sewage drain. If we plug the canal, Chicago's treated wastewater has nowhere to go. It would back up into the city or have to be dumped into Lake Michigan, which is the city's drinking water source. To make separation work, Chicago would have to completely rebuild its entire sewer system. We are talking about tunneling under one of the biggest cities in America. The cost? Anywhere from $18 billion to $25 billion. It would take 30 years. And then there is the shipping industry. Those barges we talked about earlier, they move millions of tons of goods: coal, road salt, cement, steel. If you close the canal, that cargo has to go on trucks. Experts estimate it would add thousands of trucks to the highways around Chicago every single day. The traffic would be a nightmare. The pollution would skyrocket. The cost of goods would go up. So, we have a standoff. On one side, you have the Great Lakes states: Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio. They are screaming for the canal to be closed. They have everything to lose. They say, why should our $7 billion fishing industry die just so Chicago can have cheap shipping? On the other side, you have Illinois and the shipping lobby. They say, we cannot afford $25 billion. The electric barrier is good enough. This political paralysis is the carp's best friend. While the governors argue and the lawyers sue each other, the fish keep swimming. The Brandon Road Project, the one with the bubbles and noise, is the compromise. It is a band-aid. It costs $1 billion instead of $25 billion. It keeps the ships moving. But many scientists think it is doomed to fail. Bubbles burst, speakers break, electricity goes out. And remember, nature is patient. The carp only need to win once. We have to win every single second of every single day forever. The breach in 2025 showed us how fragile the Band-Aid really is. A software update. A loose wire. That is all it took. If we rely on technology to fight biology, we will eventually lose. Machines break. Biology adapts. There is a famous quote by a scientist named Dr. David Lodge. He said, "We are managing a risk that is irreversible. Once the carp are established, you cannot poison the whole lake to get them out. You cannot net them all. You have to live with them. Look at the Mississippi River. It is gone. The native ecosystem is destroyed. We cannot fix it. We are standing on the edge of the cliff, looking down at that same fate for the Great Lakes. The Army Corps is doubling down. They are installing redundant generators. They are upgrading the software. They are promising that the 2025 breach was a one-off event. But the public trust is broken. Citizen groups are starting to monitor the water themselves. They are buying their own eDNA kits. They are patrolling the banks. There is a sense of dread in the air. Every time a fisherman pulls up a net, he holds his breath, praying he does not see that ugly silver face staring back at him. Because the day that happens, the day a fisherman catches a baby Asian carp in the open waters of Lake Michigan, the war is over. And the era of the Great Lakes as we know them will end. So, here is the controversial question I want you to answer. Knowing the risks and the cost, should we completely fill in the Chicago Canal and destroy the shipping industry to save the lakes? Or is the electric barrier enough? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more deep dives into the invisible wars happening in our waters, hit like and subscribe.